I got your course, but I bought it a year ago, is what he said. And we're like, okay. He said, but I just want to tell you about my friend. Okay. I'm like, fine. He said, well, what you going to do now? His friend was like, well, I'm not punching into a clock ever again. I'm going to keep working my cleaning business. He's like, cleaning business? Like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah. I have a cleaning business. It's doing really well, and this is what I'm doing. So he said he was so interested that he bought the course as well.
Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Hartzog Hustle podcast, where we help 9-to-5ers create more influence, impact, and income outside your jobs. And hopefully today is no different. We are your hosts, Anthony.
And I'm Janoka. Thank you for joining. Make sure you are leaving us a 5-star review, writing us a review, along with sharing and subscribing on YouTube if you watch the visuals there.
Yes, the visuals are super dope. We try to edit them for you guys and make it a little bit different. But we're going to be talking about the $100 billion conference today. Yes, $100 billion conference. And this is not any game. This is not a click, what they call it, a clickbait. This is not that. We went to a conference this past weekend in Atlanta, Georgia, thrown by Julian Gordon, and his goal was to turn that conference into being worth $100 billion. And we had a lot of game. We learned a lot, and we're going to share some of that information that we received at that conference so that you guys can be in the room with us.
Yes, we are always in Atlanta. I feel like we go there as much as we go to New York at this point, but it is what it is. But it was a good time, so no complaints, honestly.
Yeah, Atlanta's like our second home, and it was freezing out there, but we had a good time. And before we get started, I also want to shout out to the black staff at the Georgia International Convention Center. That's where the event was. I think they were super. Yeah. They were super on point.
I think it was the planning team. I don't know if it was the staff that worked there, but the planning team that he hired, basically, event staff that he hired was amazing.
Yeah, they were super good. So shout outs to the Georgia International Convention Center. And also, I think their staff was there. The AV guy was really good, and he handled a lot of things. So shout outs to those guys. So while we were there at the event, we were literally talking about life insurance and generational wealth. The name of the conference was the Generational Wealth Conference. And while we were at the event, it was literally, I think, on Instagram or something where PNB Rock, if you guys don't know, he's a rapper who was shot and killed. And his girlfriend went on, she did an IG Live or she did something that said that he didn't have life insurance or he didn't have a will. And I literally want to play that clip so that we could hopefully learn something from it. So let me pull that up right now.
No, he did not have life insurance. No, he did not have a will. No, we didn't have nothing set up. We're so young. We don't plan on death. Like, so I don't get no death benefits. I don't get nothing. Like, I don't get nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not gonna ask nobody for nothing. I got that personality, and I'm working on that. I'm trying to, empty myself of my ego and my pride, because I'm not asking nobody for nothing. Like, I don't care. I could be on fire, and I'm not even gonna ask you to spit on me. I don't need nothing from y'all. But nah, I'm trying to stop being like that.
Well, first, when we were with someone, they were saying you cannot talk about generational wealth and legacy and not have a will or life insurance in place. You cannot be saying, I'm building this for my child, or I'm building this for this person, and not have these things set up, which I've never thought about it in that way. But when I heard, this conversation from his girlfriend, it's shocking to me that a rapper or any famous person at this point wouldn't at least have life insurance. I understand people are hesitant to talk about a will because they feel like they're talking about death, even though all of us are going to die. But the fact that they didn't even have life insurance, that part is mind-boggling to me, because at minimum, that would help to cover something, is what my thought process on it. But I remember someone else saying, well, I think Aretha Franklin, somebody else didn't have anything. And I'm just like, I don't understand how at this point.
A lot of our black people in our communities don't have these things. And she even said, that we were so young, we didn't plan on his death. And I want to say that, number one, death has no age. And number two, death doesn't discriminate. We're all going to die. So I know this is a gloomy topic to talk about. Even with my family, we talk about life insurance with my mom, and she's like, well, I don't want to talk about that. And you seem like you're plotting on someone's death, but in actuality, you're trying to plan for the life, the continuance after they dies. You're trying to plan for life. So I'm not surprised. And someone else had said while we were there that you would think that these rappers, with all the money they have, they would be thinking about things. But they said the more money they have, sometimes the more ignorant or the more invincible they feel. Because they're like, well, I got all this money. I got a long life to live, and I'm doing things so fast. And say life kind of blows past them without them even thinking about doing these things. So
because they're thinking about the now.
Yeah, they're thinking about now. They're not thinking about death or.
So I think especially for those people that, if you support your family in any capacity or if you have kids, definitely at least start with the life insurance, I would say. Like, let's just start there. If you're not, if you don't want to go the route of the will or you're not ready to take it there, life insurance can be something as cheap as $25 a month, really depending on age, like, medical things, stuff like that. But there's options out there to at least have that in place so that when that time comes, hopefully it's no time soon, it can help your family, your loved ones, because everyone has this conversation like, oh, if they have siblings or they're whatever, they're like, well, you guys will just split it evenly. Do not depend on that because you've seen it. You've seen it in divorce. Somebody loves somebody and then things just go left. Things don't always go as planned. So if it's in writing, there is no question. That's the will side of it. But at least have life insurance to cover something. That I would have to preach until I'm blue.
Yeah, when we first had Alani, that was literally the first thing we did, making sure that our life insurance was just outside our 9-to-5s so that we could have more than enough coverage to create, income for her. If she wants to work, or even it's not even just for her, it's also for you or myself. So the money from the life insurance shouldn't just cover the funeral. It should cover the expenses that we incurred as a couple. It should be able to allow you or me to live without worrying about that income not coming in anymore. So that's what insurance should cover. So make sure you guys do that. I know we're preaching to the choir because you guys listening to this, you guys are already on it. I know that for a fact. But if you're not, please make that a priority.
Yeah. You just reminded me, a lot of jobs do offer it. So you can always check in at your employer to see if that's something that they offer, life insurance. But yeah, just get on something.
Yeah, it was another thing I was listening to where there was this guy who said that he came into some life insurance money that his grandfather something left him, and he had more than enough money to start buying, rental properties and kind of setting himself up for wealth. So that's the type of things that life insurance should be, generational wealth money that passes down to someone so that they could pick up and kind of keep the pieces going. So don't forget that if you guys do anything from this episode, please make sure you take care of yourself.
Yes. But on another note, to talk about this $1 billion conference, let's just break it down, I guess, a bit. It was a 3-day, 2.5-day conference that we were invited to speak on the stage. This was our first time speaking as a couple on the stage, or the first time I have ever been on a stage in that capacity, besides being a ballerina when I was younger. And it was for us to speak about the cleaning business, or just the conference. Mostly the person that's hosting it does multifamilies. So basically other businesses outside of that. So, you're getting these multifamilies, you have this extra money. Is there other things that you would like to do with it? So we went to the conference both days. I mean, Friday they had like a VIP party, but Saturday and Sunday it was all day. And we were there the whole time, meeting people, interacting, meeting speakers that we've never met or maybe never heard of, and meeting some of you guys there. That was exciting to have that face-to-face interaction. As you know, we've been in a pandemic, so everything has been via Zoom or computer. So yeah, that was kind of the quick snippet of our experience there.
Yeah, Julian's goal was when the title of this episode is $100 billion conference, and the way he broke it down was if everyone in that room had a net worth of $1 million, it would come out to 100 billion. And the reason that he chose the number 100 billion was because he pulled up the top 10 richest families in the world. You got the Waltons, you got the Koch family, you got all these families that are up there. And he said if he was able to create a multi-family movement, a generational wealth conference, and if everyone bought, let's say, two or three multifamily homes, they were able to get a net worth of $1 million. He kind of compounded that over 10, 15 years. And he showed the numbers that would absolutely equate to the multifamily movement becoming a $100 billion family. And I thought that was super dope because it gave people actionable advice. He also had an actionable game plan for what he want his conferences to look like in the future. And it also gave his team a plan like, listen, I won't be here forever. Whoever takes us over, you know what the goal is. You know how to get us there. You know, making sure people have multifamily, get multifamily homes. And this is how we get to that $100 billion net worth in the room.
Right. So we, our side of it was we were there to network and be around other people that may be like-minded like us, people that we've seen before but never been in the room with them. But then on the other side of it, we're like, we have to practice for us getting on stage because we've never been on stage. So like it was 20 minutes and we're like, what can we speak about that will be valuable and enough information that we can provide to people within 20 minutes to talk about the cleaning business and talk about ourselves. But I would say that the highlight really was being in the room and meeting other people. And then also I know we mentioned, we haven't mentioned bringing Alani on stage. So any, I guess, details on that whole day and experience?
Yeah. So one thing I realized is that creating content allows you to be a better public speaker. Absolutely. I truly believe it. And getting on camera, like us sitting right here in this room, creating this podcast, us sitting there on Instagram Live, creating content, us doing YouTube Lives, us doing other people's podcasts, we didn't realize how much public speaking practice you get. Even though we're not on stage, I didn't feel as nervous as I thought I would have been when we got up there.
Yeah, because you're asking me, how was I feeling? And I didn't feel nervous at all the whole entire time. I kept trying to, I guess I was psyching myself out, like, don't get nervous. That was kind of what I was telling myself. And it actually worked. I don't know why, but it actually worked. Even though it was a room of about 700 people, then maybe about 300 people on Zoom. And we were just saying to ourselves, we're from New York. We got to slow down. We got to enunciate. We got to make sure all these things. We also had our phones to kind of have notes on it. We didn't have to use it. So I'm just thinking about the experience. We were like building up. It happened so quickly. And then we're like, whew, that was great. Mm-hmm. That was great. And we got feedback from people saying, no, very concise, great information. Love to see it. So I think that it was amazing. And we want to do a lot more of those this year.
Yeah, I would definitely like to get on more stages. So if you guys got any opportunities, please bring them to the Hartzogs. We are open to it. Yeah. And I think our story, and even with this podcast, I think our story is so unique. We're a married couple talking about business, finances, and relationships. Mm-hmm. And that is something that you don't see in today's age. You get a bunch of single people having single conversations about what the other gender would do. Well, you don't most of the time have both genders on the same subject, on the same time, talking about the same thing, and also being married for 7 years, having a kid, and talking about these things that other people are talking
Brooklyn,
about.
New York.
Yeah,
so come from rich.
Yeah, so we have this unique thing that we're bringing to people. So I think it makes our story much more relatable. And then, like you said, when we got off the stage, we were getting feedback from people who were literally listening to us talk about our story and how we could help them get to their next level. So I think that experience was truly game changing, especially for me, figuring out how to get on more stages. It just felt good. And we were able to bring Alani. She was able to come to see her parents on stage. I know you're telling me, you're thinking, Alani don't know what's going on. We got the pictures and videos. She'll know. To see her parents be on stage for the first time. And then we were able to actually bring her on stage while Anthony was talking about generational wealth and what that meant for us and wills and things like that. So it was an overall A+ feeling the weekend. It was an A+ feeling, as much as I kind of like, not curse Atlanta out because there's always something happening there. Oh, yeah. And I'm like, it's always something. We're always coming down here. But it really was a really good feeling. And like I said, it just makes us want to push harder, to be on more stages, to be around some of these people. And we're like, some of these people recognize us. We're like, oh,
in my, like fangirling in my head if somebody's like recognizing you and they're like, oh, I see your ads and I see what you guys are doing. And it's like so nice to meet you finally. And some people that we've spoken to via DM for years, but just never met in person, which is always very weird when it comes to social media. So it was just a really good, a feel good moment, feel good moment, I would say.
And then, like you said, having Alani on the stage, you know, you see all these clips of Tiger Woods and his son. And his son's always watching him while he's playing golf. And I think you said, show me clips of him being in a garage and stuff like that.
He was watching his father.
So Alani sees us doing these things. She sees us taking business calls. She sees us doing our podcast. She sees us on stage. She sees us impacting people face to face. What do you think she's going to do? She's going to pick up some of those habits. She may decide, oh, that may be for me or that may not. But we're giving her the opportunity to see us make an impact on a daily basis throughout our everyday lives. So I think that was something that I'm thinking about having her. She's already doing it, but making sure she's also around for those things more often as we do them too. So,
and you know, we speak about being in the room, and I think we definitely have an episode about being in the room, but also being in the room and then what do you do in that moment as well, I think is important, because you could be in the room and be like, pride, I'm not going to say anything, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to put myself out there. Or you could be in the room, you know, like we did and say, hey, would you mind being on our podcast? You know what I mean? Or let me get your contact so I can stay in contact with you. The most somebody can say is no. Like, I don't give it out. That's, you know, but most of us are in this same type of mindset. Most of us are trying to build or trying to grow. So more than likely, they're not going to say no. You know what I mean? It's just us getting in our head and feeling like our egos get in the way. So no, just say what you need to say. Say, I've been following you. Say, I'm excited to meet you. Say, you know, have conversations, sit down. You know, during lunch, we had a conversation and people were talking about different strategies that they're using to help grow their business and what they're doing. And it keeps you like on your toes, help you to feel like, oh, I should be doing more. Or like, thank you for that knowledge. Now I can go back and execute A, B, and C. So there was just a lot of information poured out, I think, for the conference, but also within those small circles and those small conversations that we were having was just as powerful.
Yeah, a lot of conversation doesn't happen from on the stage. It happens in the audience. It happens behind the stage. It happens at lunch. It happens on the way to the next speaker session. Those are the places you really want to be. So when a session was over, it wasn't like, oh, we're running to the green room. No, we're sitting on the floor with people. We're making sure we're sitting at the lunch with people. We're making sure we are at the vendor's booth with people. We're making sure we're walking around, meeting and interacting with people. People are where you want to be. Taking pictures with people. That's where you want to be. That's where the real information happens. And that's where the real transformation happens, when you are not just in the green room behind the stage feeling like you're, oh, I don't want to interact with people. No,
or just coming for that
or just come in for your own segment. No, our segment wasn't until Sunday. We were there in Friday night at the VIP session, making sure we are mixing and mingling with people, making sure we recognize faces, making sure we're meeting people. We're there all day, well, most of Saturday because we had to record. We're making sure we're there bright and early Saturday, soaking up all the gems. And then Sunday, our session was at 10 a.m., but we stayed all the way until 5 p.m. to make sure we were still getting the information and making sure we're helping people get that transformation. So again, like I said, a lot of that information doesn't come from the stages. It comes from behind the scenes. It comes from on the floor, the vendors, the lunches, etc. And
then just meeting you guys made us, I don't know if you, let me see, what year are we in? We're in 2023. I think in 2020, before the pandemic started, when we were doing our goals, one of our goals was to have a Hartzog event. If you don't know, Hartzog is our brand. You're watching on our YouTube page. We wanted to have an in-person Hartzog event. Obviously, the pandemic happened and that kind of went away, but meeting with people that weren't necessarily part of our community, and we actually did meet someone that did have our course, and we'll tell that story as well, that weren't necessarily part of our community, felt amazing. So I'm like, could you imagine people that are part of our community, what that feels like? And maybe I'll recognize that name, that email, that DM that always comes through. So it helped us to kind of start thinking like, we need to have an in-person event, not necessarily on that scale, but, you know, it had us feeling like we want to interact and be around our community as well.
Yeah, sometimes another gem that came out of this was somebody said, I had the results of my peers, but I'm not invited to their room, so I had to build my own. I had to build my own table. So we've been waiting. We didn't know, maybe me, I didn't expect to be on somebody. Well, I did expect to be on somebody's stage sooner than this past weekend, but sometimes you got to build your own stage. Sometimes you got to say, you know what, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to create my own conference, and that was one of the things that the host did. He's like, yo, I am building a great conference around my community. And maybe we need to have more of that in the upcoming years, so that I know it's great to have collaboration, but maybe we need to start doing our own thing, build our own table so that we can bring our communities together. And I know that's something that you're interested in doing. So maybe you'll see that in 2023. I don't know, but you might see something from the Hartzogs. But that was the thing. So just having, if you aren't invited to other people's tables, other people's rooms, you need to think about building your own. That is something that's very important as we go into the new year. The networking opportunities were absolutely amazing. Yeah. Janoka said just asking people for their contact information. You can't get someone's phone number via DM. If they don't know you, they don't meet you, they don't shake your hand, they don't look you eye to eye, there's no commonalities. Do not ask me for my number via DM or to call you. Most of the time, they're going to just ignore you, block you, or just, oh, no, I'm good, fam. But being in the rooms, shaking people's hands, seeing their faces, having a common story, asking them for their number is like a normal thing. So I'm getting numbers from people that I probably shouldn't have their numbers because they're just in different platforms than us. But when you meet someone, it allows you to feel like, all right, we may not be on that same level in terms of popularity, but we can meet in the middle. We have a lot of common ground and we're real people. And that's the thing. A lot of people feel like social media, yes, we're all real people, but it's different seeing somebody in person and recognizing that, oh, this person's really dope. Not just dope online, dope in person. I can vibe with them in person. A lot of people are weirdos in real life. I'm not even lying.
I was gonna say I was gonna use that word, don't be a weirdo, and be like, call me. So I think since we all like, just think about how you would want somebody to treat you, right? You don't want nobody coming up to you and saying, call me. Like, for what? I don't know you. Like, you don't want that, right? So if you are meeting people and if you are getting into those rooms and circles, let's take it easy. But still, like we said, don't stop yourself from putting yourself out there and being vulnerable and asking a question, or, I saw that you did this recently. How did you do that? How did you execute this? I'm looking to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think almost all the time we've been around entrepreneurs in Atlanta, because that's where we be around them. People are willing to share. I don't feel like we've met anyone, I'm sure we will at some point, that I felt like, oh no, they didn't want to tell us anything. You know what I mean? So people are willing to share, people are willing to vibe and just connect as human beings.
And people are probably more willing to share in person once they find like, all right, you aren't a weirdo, or you are exactly who I thought you was online. Right. So they may say, all right, well, and actually this came up during lunch. We were sitting at the table, and I'm not going to put the data out there, but there were people at the table that said they made a couple $1 million doing something, right? And that you can't unhear that information. No. You can't, now in my mind is like,
what am I doing?
Exactly. Now in my mind is like, you can't unhear that someone made a couple $1 million in a day doing something very particular, and they're literally giving us the entire strategy on how they did it and wanted to show us how they were doing it. So you can't unhear that information. You know what's possible. You've seen what's possible. And now being in the room, sitting at that table, allows you to say, all right, I am soaking up all the game that I could get, so I could potentially actually do this strategy as well. And you can't get that type of stuff online. It only happens when you're sitting at the table with people.
No, I agree. That game-changing information.
Game-changing information.
But it was a good vibe. I love seeing the community that he has built with his multifamily community, and they were riding out. They were proud to be part of that multifamily community, and I loved it. I thought it was great. They showed up, they showed out. There were vendors. One thing that we didn't take advantage of, and we said we live and we learn. This was our first event. There was room to be like a vendor, so an area where people could shop around. We ain't had no flyers or nothing, but next time we will. Yeah. Next time we'll be able to work the table a bit more.
Stay ready so you don't have to get ready, always.
But that's where some people came up to us and spoke to us. Oh, I said I was going to share a story about a student that wanted to speak with us, and he creeped up hesitantly because he was like, I got your course. So if you're listening, I got your course, but I bought it a year ago. Is what he said. And we're like, okay. He said, but I just want to tell you about my friend. Okay. I'm like, fine. I don't remember if he said the friend got laid off or the friend was leaving. They're from New York. Friend was moving down to Florida where he lives as well, a different part of Florida from where he lives. And he said, well, what you going to do now? His friend was like, well, I'm not punching into a clock ever again. I'm going to keep working my cleaning business. He's like, cleaning business? Like, what do you mean? He's like, never heard of it. He's like, what do you mean a cleaning business? He's like, yeah. I have a cleaning business. It's doing really well, and this is what I'm doing. So he said he was so interested that he bought the course as well. He's like, I wanted to see like what my friend was talking about, what my friend was growing. And he said that he's like, I was like, well, do you follow us on Instagram? He was like, I watch all your lives. I've been following you for a while. I have all the information. I just need to jump on it. So I was like, thank you for sharing. You need to jump on it. But can you tell your friend to reach out to us and kind of let us know where he is? He's like, well, I know my friend. He's pretty quiet. He doesn't like to speak up or whatever. And I said, I understand. We don't have to put his numbers out there or put anything out there. Technically, we just want to know the story. And the reason why we say that is because we don't know our impact unless somebody comes back and tells us like, hey, I got my business up and running and A, B, and C. I made this amount. I quit my job, whatever the case may be. We have no way of knowing. We ask people to tell us, but there's no guarantees. So he said, I completely understand and I agree that you want to be able to measure your impact for when you're speaking to others and seeing how you're changing lives. So that conversation was great just to meet one of you guys, but also just to reiterate, letting people know the impact, I think, is just as important if you're getting something from it. Even if you didn't get your cleaning business up and running, even if you did get it running and you quit, maybe it was your first LLC that you made, just something that you got from it. Letting whoever know, if you take a course or whatever the case may be, letting them know how they've helped you in some way.
Yeah, that feel your impact in real life is huge. And Julian was able to do that with his community, like you said. And they were literally showing he was able to feel and see the impact with the numbers that when we talk about the $100 billion, the $100 billion conference, like that's the impact that he's trying to create long term. So when you see us and you hear us or you speak to us, it's okay to let us know if we had an impact on your life, because this is what people need, so that it's not an ego thing. A little bit is ego, right? We want to make sure that we are putting the proper information out there, but most of it is being able to know how we want to be able to measure our impact with our students, our community, our content, whatever we're doing, because if not, we're not impacting anyone. We're wasting our time, honestly.
Yeah.
If there is a 0% chance that this video will impact someone, it doesn't make sense for it to be out there. So everything that we create, no matter what it is, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a course, whether it's a tweet, whether it's a reel, whatever it is, there is a measure of impact that we are looking to create as creators. That's the whole purpose of this. So that whole conference was in $100 billion conference. It's created to measure the impact that he is having on the Black community. It was called Generational Wealth Conference because the goal is to impact generational wealth.
Yeah. I think just showing what was possible what is possible at that conference is what felt good and was a blessing to be around, and to be around, to know that someone thought of us, to say, I want you on that stage with some of these big heavy hitters in the community. And
another thing, that being at a conference or something like this, sometimes it may allow you to see what you truly enjoy. And this was a conversation that came up with Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher. He said sometimes people ask, like, what do I want to do? And sometimes we feel like we can never figure it out. But it does take you trying different things to figure out what you truly enjoy. And I'm not saying we're gonna be public speaking as a couple or anything like that.
Maybe.
But I did truly enjoy us being on stage and creating that impact. And it even made me think about growing up, was that I was huge into art. Like growing up, I used to draw. Did I ever draw you a picture?
I know that you can draw. I've encouraged you to draw many times.
So I used to draw all the time. And one thing he said was, sometimes you have a hobby, or you have something that you truly enjoy that you give up because you were
shut down.
And that was something that was shut down. And I never got back into it. But then being on that stage made me realize, all right, there are other things out there that you may truly enjoy that you could try, but you just have to get out there or be put in a position to actually try it. So
when you were just saying that, I was trying to think about, I used to truly enjoy dancing. So
you want to dance on stage? You might decide to dance on stage. Let's do it.
So I'm like, maybe me doing TikToks would be a sign of.
Nah, we ain't gonna have you on TikTok dancing.
Why not?
Nah, that ain't it.
Oh, wow. You see? Talk about people shutting you down. You still shut me down.
That's exactly what just happened. I definitely just shut you down.
What? Okay, wow. All right, next conversation. I really thought about it though, but go ahead.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that teaching our people so much in the community that he has built was it was literally showing us what's possible. One of the things that he mentioned was eventually getting that conference to look like to be in Madison Square Garden or something like a huge arena. But I think it takes you just starting sometimes. You know, he showed the first conference that he had, and it was like 10, maybe. It wasn't even a conference. It was
maybe
just
like 100 people. And then they, what happened was they did one in pre-COVID that year before COVID hit. And then the next 2 years it was all virtual.
Yeah.
And now this is in person.
But it takes you just trying something and getting it started and saying, you know, what the heck? I think the first meetup he did had like 10 people in his house.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine the first meetup you do has 10 people, and then 10 years later, you got 10,000 people, right? Mm-hmm. So, but it just takes you putting that information out there. You're saying, you know what, I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it a shot, and then seeing what happens.
Follow through with it. Right?
And follow through with it.
Remaining consistent with it. So
that is very important. And I did want to share something from the conference that I thought was really important, especially as we're talking about generational wealth and the $100 billion conference. So he talked about 50 wealth building ideas or implementation steps that we have to do. And I'm not going to go through all 50, obviously, but I do want to give you some things that he did mention. So number one, after you have a strong income source, buying an investment property outside your main home, creating active income of $100K a year, either your job, active income, active income, your job, entrepreneurship, product or service, semi-passive income, creating that as well, either real estate, digital products, passive income, creating real estate with maybe a property manager, dividend-paying stocks, REITs, fractional shares, building an emergency fund, 6 months of your emergency expenses or 3 months or even a year, a living trust. We started our conversation talking about a trust and a will, very important in order to build generational wealth. Donor advised fund. That's something we also just did so that we were able to donate to our church from that donor advised fund.
You can donate to anything.
Yeah, really. You can literally donate to anything.
Yeah.
Having an estate plan and will for things not in your living trust. So being prepared for death is very important in creating generational wealth.
I just want to say, Anthony always says, one thing that we're guaranteed is that we're going to die. As harsh as that is, one thing that's guaranteed is that we're going to die. So, you know, get that started, especially if people rely on you or if you have, you know, children.
Two things guaranteed, death and taxes. That's it. And then cash value whole life insurance policy, and then creating, having your children become employees. These are some ways or multiple ways to create generational wealth. So it's very important that you take some of those steps, you figure out which ones you have in place, which ones you don't. But there is a lot of game, and I see why that conference will definitely be upwards of $100 billion in the future.
And we hope to be back next year. We hope to be back next year because he's already talking about doing it in the same place. We hope to be back to share knowledge. Maybe we have more time on the stage, or maybe 20 minutes is just enough.
We'll see.
But we shall see. Anything else from you?
No, let's wrap this up. So before we leave, if you guys didn't know, you ever want to support the podcast, we have a Patreon.
Woo!
Link will be in the show notes. Link will be in the notes, and it allows you, I think it's $9 a month, and you become a creative director on the podcast, which means that you can help us create topics. You get behind the scenes footage, and you got anything else we're doing with the Hartzog Hustle podcast. Also, please leave us a 5-star review if you feel like we're a 5-star podcast. Drop that review.
I think about 5-star chick.
Drop that review. And then last but not least, shout outs to our sponsors.
Melanin Money. Yes, use the word hustle for 15% off of the merch.
I'm looking at my shirt.
MelaninMoney.com.
Normalize Black Wealth. They have a lot of dope merch in regards to creating generational wealth. That's what we're talking about. That's what we preach. So check out Melanin Money. They also have a podcast, and they also have a community, Melanin Millionaires Club. So check all of that out. They are the sponsors, and we appreciate them.
Yes, thank you very much. Make sure you are subscribing and sharing and liking on YouTube if you are watching the visuals. Thank you for tuning in on another episode of the Hartzog Hustle podcast. See you again on Tuesday at 7 a.m. Central.
All right, peace.
Bye.
This has been an episode of the Hartzog Hustle podcast. We hope you enjoyed. Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite listening platform. And follow Anthony and Janilka on Instagram at The Hartrimony. That's TheHartrimony. Keep hustling, baby. Keep hustling, baby.
Get that money. Get that money.